been so long, in fact, that I have actually forgotten how to do this. I filmed 2 podcasts prior to this one, so this one's the 3rd attempt. And the first one I filmed vertically, which I don't know if you know a ton about YouTube, but if you film vertically, you're going to have black bars on the sides. It's not going to look very good. So anytime you're filming something that you're planning on uploading to YouTube, definitely film horizontal. So that was the first one, first mistake. The second time I filmed correctly, everything went so well. I was clearing up some space on my phone so that I could take the video from iMovie and save it with my edits, and by edits I mean just the text on the screen. And in the process of clearing up my memory, I deleted the video. So an hour of my time down the drain essentially, but we're not gonna harp on it. 3rd time's a charm. We're gonna give it our best shot. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Deja. I used to do this podcast called the Knit by Day podcast, and last year, my husband and I picked up our little lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, moved all the way across the country to Hutchinson, Kansas. And those of you who watched the last episode of the podcast will know that I was super ambitious during the move, and I said, okay, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks because I'm definitely going to film another podcast. It's been 8 months, so that didn't happen. That being said, this, despite my 2 practice rounds, is going to be a little bit of an unscripted episode. I have pulled some finished objects that I know you haven't seen and pulled some things that I'm working on, but I know that this probably isn't an exhaustive list, and so somewhere along the way there will likely be like a rogue project that I did not show you guys today, and so we'll just have to catch up on future episodes. Another thing I noticed when I was kind of reflecting back on the podcast and the way I did things originally, the way I was doing it before was filming a podcast and then spending like an hour editing and making sure that everything looked the way I wanted it to and I sounded the way I wanted to, and that was all well and good, but I think it left me, 1, burdened by the editing process and kind of took the joy out of it, and 2, I feel like it came off a little bit more inauthentic than it could have. And so from here on out, I might have an intro, not this episode because I am just solely trying to get this to YouTube, but I might have an intro, and then I will definitely have text on the screen so that you guys can follow along on what project I'm doing. But as far as editing to cut things out and make sure I sound right and all that, I'm really not going to do. I'm just going to totally speak my mind, give you my thoughts, and if at some point I fumble on my words, you're going to catch it all. So that way I think that I can be a little bit more true to myself, be a little bit more authentic, and hopefully make this a more streamlined process. We'll see how it goes. Anything I need to tell you before we jump into knitting? I don't think so. I am sipping on a cellulose energy drink that my husband, the Easter Bunny, left me in my Easter basket this morning. I'm super grateful to have it. We have spent the weekend kind of doing some chores, getting things together. I have a friend coming to town today in like an hour. I'm leaving to go pick her up from the airport. So exciting, but I need some energy. All right, let's just jump into finished objects. So this one I know that I showed as a whip on the last episode of the podcast. This is going to be I always call it the Pink Fizz sweater, but it is the Pink Velvet sweater by Andrea Mowry. I have knit both the Pink Fizz and the Pink Velvet, but this one is the Pink Velvet. And I really love this pattern. I think, like most knitters, Andrea Mowry is one of my favorite designers. She's really the designer that piqued my interest and got me more into knitting. I had previously been like knitting garter scarves, but really hadn't dabbled into any patterns and I didn't know about the knitting community at that point, and so it was her patterns and her inspiration that like really got me into the knitting community, got me knitting patterns, and so her patterns always kind of hold a special place in my heart. So yes, this is the pink velvet, and this is knit out of Qing fiber in a colorway I will not remember, but all the information I don't have in my head will be in the description box below. So yes, this part with the color work is going to have Suri alpaca. The rest is going to be knit just in whatever their fingering sock weight base is. I do really like this pattern. The one thing I will say about the yarn that I dislike, I really like the Suri, but I don't know if it was my gauge or the give of the yarn or what it was, but you can kind of see it's like I didn't have a lot of stitch definition, especially in the ribbing. And I don't love that. I'm guessing it's probably because it's such a loose gauge, but yeah, I really don't love that. It has not bothered me to the point that this does not get a lot of wear. It absolutely does. But yeah, that's just not my favorite. So I'll stand up really quick and just show you, well, maybe it kind of would fall right where my pants start. So sort of cropped, which is exactly what I like in a sweater. The sleeves are just kind of your typical sleeve. I don't think I made any modifications to the pattern. I typically knit, I know Andrea's patterns, the sizes are numbers, so I knit whatever corresponds to a medium. I think maybe a 3 or a 4, I'm not entirely sure, but look at the bust. I think I typically knit like a 36 bust, whatever that is. And that's that. I'm going to like softball toss all of these projects as I finish talking about them. The next one is potentially one of my favorite knits of all time. Hard to say for sure, but definitely one of my favorite knits this year. You have seen the yarn, you have not seen the project. So this is the Felix sweater by Amy Christoffers. Many of you will have heard about the Felix, seen the Felix, even if you have not knit one yourselves. The main characteristic of this pattern is going to be the really pretty detailing around the raglan increases, so like those arrow stitches, and then the rest of the pattern is very much just plain stockinette, which I love. It's the reason I chose this pattern. I really wanted a sweater that was going to be a staple in my wardrobe that I could wear over skirts and dresses and jeans, really whatever. I knit a size larger than I would typically, so it is really beautifully oversized, and I can like tuck it in my jeans or tie it or whatever I need to do, and it gets a ton of wear. This is knit out of Suburban Stitcher. It is a Suri alpaca and a fingering weight held together. Probably pretty clear that I'm a really big fan of Suri alpaca, but the colorway I am blanking on. I think it's Oslo or Onslow, something like that. It'll be in the description box. But I think it is a really gorgeous color. So you can see it has like a lot of orangish brown speckles, really beautiful, interesting colorway while still being a neutral. Big fan. And I think that, I don't know if she still does, but I know that when I ordered this as a custom, not custom, but a sweater's quantity. So you can always go and pre-order a sweater's quantity for her, and she'll like dye it on demand, which is really nice. Because, you know, you always want to support these indie dyers, but they don't always have enough in stock to accommodate a sweater. And so to be able to go on the website and get a sweater right away is really nice. I said that was my favorite of this year. but this next one is a really close rival. This is the mystery knit along Stephen West did most recently. I don't know if that was 2021 or 2022, but his most recent one, the Shawlography mystery knit along. For those of you who don't know what a mystery knit along, essentially the pattern is released in segments, and so in Stephen's case it is released in 4 segments, 1 per week. So it's over 4 weeks you knit along to this pattern, and you do not know what the finished object is going to look like. And so a mystery knit along is very much about trusting the process, playing with color, and trying really hard not to worry about what the finished object is going to look like. And that can be anxiety provoking for a lot of people, and definitely for me. But I was very intentional about just enjoying this process and learning a new technique, and just trying not to stress it. But I ended up really loving the finished object as well. So this is the Shawlography. I finished it about 4 months after the completion of the mystery knit along, and somehow I totally avoided any spoilers, which is pretty incredible. Anytime I saw it on a podcast or someone's Instagram, I would like scroll by really fast or skip it. This project, and leave it to Stephen. If you haven't knit any of Stephen West's patterns, I highly recommend. If for no other reason, he will definitely teach you a new technique. I think the man is an absolute genius. And so this entire project was really just new technique after new technique for me. And my husband would like look over while I was knitting it on the couch and be like, what the heck are you doing? Because, you know, it is definitely, with all these different characteristics, very out of the box, especially for me, but so much fun to do. And I really, really love the object. In terms of the yarn, this is one that will not be in the description box because I have no idea what I did. I know that I ordered the yarn online, but where I ordered it from, I have no clue. What the brand of the yarn was, no clue. Colorway, no clue. I usually will save a yarn tag, but I can't find them anywhere. I don't have notes. I'm really sorry about not taking notes on this yarn because it is a really lovely, soft, squishy yarn, and I love the colors, but no more yarn in my future because I don't know what it is. I do have some leftovers, so I'll be able to knit some scrappy socks, but in terms of ordering this yarn again, nope, not in the stars for me. But again, this is the Shawlography Shawl by Stephen West, also known as West Knits. Highly recommend. Even if you don't follow it as a mystery knit along, I think it's a really cool shawl. And if you don't knit it as a mystery, then you can pick your colors very well. This is my last finished object, and then we're going to jump into works in progress. So another odd project for me. I knit this earlier this week, and it took me probably 2 days. It was such a fast knit. This is called the Mussleburgh Hat by Ozetta, and I'm probably butchering that, but I gave it a shot. This is, yes, a hat. So the way it works is you'll cast on, increase, knit straight stockinette, and then decrease. You're left with this really cool, interesting shape that is then folded in on itself. Oops. So then you have, excuse my ends that aren't woven in, but then you have a really cozy, cute, comfy double knit hat. And you get that without having to fuss with a provisional cast on or pick up stitches once you're halfway or anything like that. It was so easy to make. I am not going to put this on my head because the last time I filmed this or attempted to film this, I put it on my head and then it jacked up my hair and I felt like I was spending the rest of the podcast like fixing my hair. So not putting it on, just trust that it's really cute. The other thing that I really, really love about this pattern is she has you cast on and then you knit for an inch and then you check your gauge. So you're not knitting a gauge swatch, you're essentially using the project as your gauge swatch. So once you get gauge, you look in the pattern, she has some charts and you pick your size, and based on the size you want and the gauge you have, she'll tell you how many stitches you need to increase and then how many stitches you need to decrease in what order and all that. So this pattern is very customizable. It means that you can knit in whatever needle size you have, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever yarn weight you have, and it's just super, super custom, which I love. I wish every pattern were like that because, like most knitters, I loathe knitting a gauge swatch. I just want to jump into it. Gauge swatches are important. Always check it. But when a hat like this comes into my life, magic. This yarn is actually my hand-dyed yarn. I recently started dyeing yarn, and that is perhaps the most exciting thing that I have been up to for the last 8 months. I have been wanting to dye yarn ever since I found out that dyeing yarn was a thing. But I had always kind of hesitated, doubted my abilities. It's not super expensive, but it's definitely a little bit of money to throw into it. And so if you aren't sure, it can be really difficult to dive in. I was a little bit afraid I was going to get in over my head and have put all this money into it and lose it. But I've been researching for years. I have always had a little bit of an eye for color. And so I just pulled the trigger this year, and I'm so glad I did. I'm having a ton of fun with it. And I'll show you a couple more things I've dyed as the podcast progresses. Okay, with that, we are jumping into works in progress. So, the last couple episodes, I don't know if I talked about it on the very last episode, but definitely the last couple, I had shown you guys a shawl that I was working up designing. It was like a cream and green color, and it had some fading, some brioche. Yeah, I have that sample all knit up, but when I finished it, I realized that I loved the design characteristics, the elements of the design, like the brioche and the fading, but I really did not like the final shape of the shawl. So I cast on another version, keeping everything the same except for the shaping. So as you can see, this is eventually going to be a right triangle shawl. Words were not coming to me there. A right triangle shawl. Really love this yarn. I have 3 colors incorporated right now, so you can kind of see the fading. There's a brioche section. There's another brioche section started. Really, really love the way this worked up. Like I said, I do have the other sample, and maybe I'll show it on the next episode, but what I found was it was a little bit hard for me to style. It was kind of short, and it just wasn't really a shape I was comfortable with, so I figured if I'm going to put a pattern out into the world, it has to be something that I love. And so we're just going to tweak the pattern and see how this goes. Like I said, I have already incorporated 3 different colors. So here they are. And the 4th color is coming unskein, so I'm probably going to have to cake it today. This is a Homespun house, who, if you've watched prior podcasts, you know I am a huge fan of a Homespun house. Absolutely love Molly's shop and love watching her videos. She also has a podcast by the same name. And this is her Huggable 50 gram minis. So it comes with 4 50-gram minis about this size, and it is called Huggable. It's in the Huggable colorway. It is on their soft sock base, which is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. The really, really cool thing about this yarn is it really is some of the softest yarn I have ever worked with, which is bizarre because other 75-25 bases aren't quite as soft. Like this almost feels like cashmere, but I know there's no cashmere in it. So I don't understand how two yarns can be of the same fiber content and still be so different as far as touch, the touchability of them. So if anybody knows anything about fiber and how that works, definitely let me know. I've been so curious about it, but a joy to work with and really liking the way the shawl is coming along. So hopefully that'll be done in the near future. Toss that because stitches will go flying and it'll be a disaster. Okay, next I have just this gorgeous coziness. This is the Kindred Cowl by Whimsy North Knits, and I am actually test knitting this project. This is going to be a half color work, half solid colored cowl with a little bit of a twist in the middle. So as you can see, I have completed the color work section, and sometime next week I'm going to dye up this solid color, which is going to be like a lime green or a really fluorescent neon green, because I think it'll contrast really well with these two colors. This pattern has been so much fun to knit up. It is one of those color works that is interesting enough but intuitive enough that you're not losing interest, you're really engaged, but you can at some point start to kind of read your knitting, and so you can go a little bit on autopilot for a few rows, and that's really nice. I like that about certain color work patterns. So here she is up close. This is once again my hand-dyed yarn. It does not have an official name yet, but this is in little navy blue here, and then the background color is a light speckled blue. Really pretty together, I think, and even prettier with the lime green or fluorescent green that I plan. It's in my head, so hopefully it comes out because I really want to pair it with this. I know that our deadline to complete this is around the 27th. 27th pops into my head for some reason, and I know that she's planning on releasing it shortly after, so give her a follow on Instagram so that you can kind of stay up to date on when the pattern will be released. Speaking of Instagram, I would typically have told you in the beginning where you can find me on the internet, and because this is so unscripted, I absolutely didn't do that. It's a little late now, but you can find me on Instagram at Knit by Day or on Ravelry at Days Jam. I really have made a serious attempt to start updating Ravelry a little bit more with some of my projects, but I am still not very good at it. So if you want a really up-to-date version of what I'm doing, I post on Instagram weekly, if not daily. So Instagram is definitely the place to be if you want to see what I'm up to. Ravelry, not so much. Alright, since I just showed you a project with my yarn, I will show off yet another one. It is in true Deja fashion that I start another shawl design without finishing the first one. But I really wanted these 4 colors together, and I couldn't really find a pattern on Ravelry or online anywhere that I thought would work really well. And so this shawl was born. Not really much to it. It's in a kite shape, and you know, on the white sections there are these eyelets and a visible color change, but other than that it is just knit, 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 and I am enjoying working on it so far. Clearly it is very much at the beginning stages of this pattern, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I really love the way that blue knits up. It's super variegated and pretty, and not at all what I expected when I initially started dyeing it, but I'm very pleased with the way it came out. What else? Oh, second to last. Let's see. Okay, this one is a blouse tee is more what I was thinking, not a blouse. It is a jumbled mess right now. Jeez. Okay, it is a v-neck tee, as you can see, but I am kind of in the middle of working the body and the neckband, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see. Okay, there we kind of go. These two little floppy ends are actually the back of the neck, so they will be sewn together to kind of form a nice cushy back of neck. It's a v-neck. This is called the Moonset Tee by Ozetta, and I'm not actually sure if she is on Ravelry because I bought this off her website, and I knew about it because I follow her on Instagram. She is obviously a designer, but the reason I follow her and the thing I really, really like about following her on Instagram is that all of her patterns are very simple and neutral, and following her, I feel like if you were to knit all her patterns, you would end up with a really gorgeous staple wardrobe. So things that you could really wear with anything, which in the end is my goal for my wardrobe. I want really, really wearable pieces that I can throw on over anything, kind of like my Felix sweater is. And in that, you know, you're growing a sustainable wardrobe and you're not really giving into fast fashion quite as much, which is one of the reasons I love knitting so much. And so anytime I find a designer or a pattern that really fits into that mold, I get super excited about it. So her original pattern I know was knit out of like Knitting for Olive and cashmere, which is really pretty and I'm sure drapes gorgeously. But I had some Berrocco modern cotton in my stash, and so I thought I'd give it a shot. And so far it is working out for me. I don't love cotton at all, but in terms of it working with the pattern, it's definitely working out, and I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I would. Don't ask why I bought cotton yarn if I don't like cotton. It just happened. I was in my local yarn shop, and for whatever reason, I was really drawn to this color, so I bought it. I have this project's on hold because I have since actually ran out of yarn. Like I said, I had really stashed it and I wasn't sure what I was making with it, and so I kind of failed in terms of getting enough yardage. And then when I went back to my local yarn shop to go buy another skein, they had every color except for the one I needed. So the only place I could find another skein of it was somewhere online. And so it'll take a couple of weeks to get here, but hopefully it'll get here soon so I can get that off the needles. I'd really just have a little bit of body and the sleeves left to go. So it probably needed like half a skein, and now I'll have more leftover cotton in my stash. That's what I get for buying something I didn't really want. Okay, last work in progress. So, also on the last episode, I had started a crochet project, and it was really my first time ever dabbling into crochet, and I was super duper excited about it. I think I had like started a blanket in Lion's brand yarn or something like that. But as I was crocheting on it, I realized that my edges were so wonky. And me being kind of the craft perfectionist that I am, I could not let it go. So despite the work that I had already put into it, I ripped it all out. I worked on my edging, figured out what I was doing wrong, and have since been doing better. I have not gone back to that yarn or that project, but I did start another crochet project. My sister, when we were together over Christmas, talking about how she really wanted to do a temperature blanket, and I said, I'll do that with you. And so we're both knitting up temperature blankets. Here's mine. I do not have my chart on me, but I can tell you that really warm colors like the orange and the yellow are going to be warmer, higher temperatures, and then the cooler colors like the blues are obviously going to be colder temperatures. For those of you who have never heard of a temperature blanket, have never crocheted a temperature blanket, essentially what you're doing is you create a chart for the different highs that you have in your area. And so, for instance, a high of 60 through 68 might be an orange color for you. And so if you get a high of 66, then that day you knit an orange stripe into your blanket. And so each one of these stripes represents a day and represents the high of that day. And so at the end of the year, you kind of have an idea of what kind of year you had. Was it really warm? Was it really cold? Was it an absolute mix like mine is? I can tell you that this blue here is a single digit weather, which Christian and I have never had a real winter. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we come from a beach town in North Carolina, and you know, you might get some 30-degree days, and once every 5 years you'll probably see a snowflake, but it really isn't very consistently cold. I would say a majority of the year, a majority of the cold months, it's about 60. 60 is the high. And so moving to the Midwest was quite the adjustment for us. You know, like I said, very rarely snow and almost never a single digit weather day. But as you can see, we had quite a few single digit days and a lot of snow days. And even now that it's spring and we are starting to enjoy, you know, 80, 90 degree days here and there, it could be 80 degrees one day and snow the next. So very unpredictable, quite the adjustment, and I am honestly very much missing my beach days. The perk is I get to wear a lot of my knitting. The downside is it's freaking freezing cold all the time. And yeah, I was not built for the cold. I am originally from Louisiana, or Mississippi, Louisiana area, and so yeah, never had to deal with the cold until now. The last thing I want to show you before we jump into a life update for you is some more of this hand-dyed yarn. So this color is on a worsted weight, and it will look familiar because it is the exact same color that was in the shawl I just showed you. So a very reddy, orangish red, I would say, because it's more of a red with orange undertones than an orange with red undertones. I have dyed several skeins of this color because this color in general is really having a moment for me. So here's this. None of these really have permanent names. I'm calling this one Princess Ave for the time being. I don't know if it'll stick or not, but I call it Princess Ave because it very much reminds me of Princess Avenue in Wilmington, where our courthouse is, and the courthouse is a very bright red. It's like brick, but it's not your typical brick red. It's a very bright red. And so it kind of reminded me of this. It's not quite that color, but for whatever reason, that's the memory that color sparked for me. This next one is honestly my absolute favorite. I did not take very good notes while I was dyeing it, and so I'm definitely going to have to figure out how to dye it again. This is one I'm calling Saturdays. When I showed it to a friend, she said that I should call it Gushers Spaghetti, which is also fitting, but it very much reminded me of like hippie tie-dye colors. So I've been calling it Saturdays. And that's it. This one's on a fingering weight yarn. And honestly, the rest of them are going to be on fingering weight. I only had one like sample skein on worsted weight, and then I have a bunch of DK that hasn't really been dyed yet. Next, calling this one Azalea for now, and as you can see, it has some like really pretty orangish coral variegation along with blue speckles throughout. Super pretty. And the last one I'm going to show you is not actually dyed by me. So I spent all of 30 seconds teaching Christian how to dye yarn, and because he is annoyingly good at everything he learns how to do, he came up with this right off the bat. And it's a gorgeous like muted coral with blue speckles. I absolutely love this color. Truly love it. And I'm mad I didn't come up with it myself. This is also a fingering weight, but it does have some cashmere in it, so it is super yummy all around. As that's it for the skeins I have out right now. But as far as, you know, like as I start to dye different colorways and I experiment with different bases, I'm gonna have a lot of just single skein, one-of-a-kind yarns. And this is not my stash. I have far more boxes and bins under my bed, and so I do not have enough life left to knit with all the yarn I have. That sounds really morbid, but I could spend every day knitting for the rest of my life, and I probably would not run out of yarn. And I'm definitely not going to stop buying yarn anytime soon. So I need help. I posted some of these for sale on my Instagram story, and like I said, I'm just experimenting, and they are single skeins, so I posted them at a discounted rate. And I'm thinking by the time this goes live, it will not be too late to jump on there and see if there are some available. But if you get up there and it is too late, just shoot me a message. Instagram stories are only 24 hours, as you know. And so if it's gone, it doesn't necessarily mean I don't have it. So if you are really interested in this yarn, just let me know and I will see if there's any left for you. Okay, I'm looking around to make sure that is it. And I think it is. So we can go ahead and jump into life stuff. And I'll tell you about this big Kansas move. If you watched previous episodes, you know that I was incredibly anxious when we figured out that Christian was going to be doing his internship in Kansas. For those of you who don't know, my husband is on the very last year of his PhD in clinical psychology, which means that he had to go through a match process and get matched with an internship that could have been anywhere in the country. We ended up in Hutchinson, Kansas. He actually works at a little town called Larned, but there's nothing in Larned, so we have to live an hour and a half away, and he just makes the commute. So yeah, we got sent to Kansas, and I was very anxious about it and almost considering staying behind for the year that he was going to be in Kansas. In hindsight, I am very, very glad I did not, because being away from my husband for a year, especially newly married, would have been incredibly hard. And not worth it at all. And Kansas has really been quite the adventure for us. We are doing things that we have never done, never would have done. We are seeing things that we would have never seen otherwise, and I really, really like my job. So I am working for a nonprofit called Up Reno, and we are a nonprofit that works very closely with the schools to do drug, alcohol, and suicide prevention. And my side of things is very much drug and alcohol prevention because that's my forte. I worked in treatment for a long time before this. And so I spend my day working with teens and helping them build leadership skills and empowering them to make healthy choices. And on occasion, I have to intervene with a kid who maybe hasn't made the best choices up until now. And so kind of trying to coach them through that process, what's going on, and help them make a different decision. Really, really enjoy that piece of it. As I just mentioned, I was in treatment for a while, and I really loved that at the time, but given recent events from personal things in my life, I just don't think that's where I need to be right now. Having lost someone to addiction, it's really, really heavy work, and to have personal ties does not make it any easier. And so to be on this side of the spectrum doing prevention is far more sunshine and rainbows, and hopefully making a difference in kids' lives so that they don't have to go down that path. And that is not in any way to say that addiction is a choice, but we do know that we can add some protective factors into their lives and help boost the chances that they do not ever succumb to addiction. And that's really rewarding, cool work to get to do. The town we live in is big enough to have things to do in it. We have a little downtown, but it is also small enough to have like very small town vibes, and I do like that. We are also close enough to bigger cities like Wichita and Topeka, where you can do shopping and get good food and do all the city things that you need to do, so that's not a problem. And then we also live about 15 minutes from an Amish community, which I have had zero interaction with the Amish up until now, and so it has been really cool to kind of learn about their culture and eat their food, which is delicious. We get their pies pretty often because they're fantastic. And so, as I mentioned, I have a friend coming this weekend, and that is probably one of the first things we'll do. We'll go pick up a pie. I make all my guests go pick up a pie because I think it is something everyone should get to experience at some point in their lives. You may have just heard a bark. My dogs are outside. And I do say dogs. Before we moved here, we had one dog, and we didn't want a second dog. We weren't even talking about it, not for a few years. And one night, my boss, who is a very lovely woman, was asking if I wanted to go with her to go look at lab puppies because she was planning on getting one. And I thought, sure, no harm in looking. I can't afford a lab puppy, so there's no risk of me bringing one home. Labs are outrageously expensive if you did not know. And I get there and playing with all the puppies, and I wish I had all the money in the world so I could bring home 4. When the breeder, who was down to like 3 puppies at the time and just trying to get rid of them, said, if you buy one today, we will do a buy one, get one free. And my boss said, I will pay the fee and you can take home the free puppy. So who in the world is going to say no to a free lab puppy? Certainly not me. And somehow I convinced my husband that it was an excellent idea. So he took home this lab puppy, and her name is Bailey. She is now 6 months old, and she is a phenomenal addition to the family. She's a yellow lab. She's gorgeous and so sweet. Obviously, they are outside right now. Otherwise, I could bring her in here, but maybe I'll like post a clip of them together so you can see Bailey. My other dog, Weston, absolutely loves her. And so, like I said, just the perfect addition. Couldn't have asked for a better scenario. They're coming up the stairs. yeah, other than that, I've mentioned a couple of times that I have a friend coming in today. About 45 minutes away from having to leave here. We're gonna do some Kansas things that I haven't gotten the chance to do yet, like go to the Flint Hills and spend some time there. The Flint Hills are a really gorgeous area in Kansas that I've only since driven past. And then while we're in that area, a little bit north is apparently, this is all hearsay so far, but apparently there's a town called Alma, and they are known for just making cheese. Like, it's a very small town and all they do is make cheese. So can't think of a better place for me to be than in Alma eating cheese. And I think we'll probably do that on Tuesday. I have taken the entire time she is here off of work, so we are just hanging out and having a good time, and I'm really excited about it. I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you guys. Next month, Christian will graduate with his PhD, so we'll go home and spend some time in Wilmington, which we're really excited about. And other than that, we're just cruising, living life in Kansas. I can't believe I'm in Kansas, to be honest, but it's what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna, like I said, try to make this a consistent thing, but we'll see how it goes. I could see you in a week. I could see you in 8 more months. And until then, happy knitting.
Hey Bailey, where's your toy? There's your toy.